Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Oh no, no one saw this coming, least of all Sheila Carter herself, because for the first time in her life, the woman who has survived gunshots, fires, prison cells, betrayals, and enemies on every corner finds herself staring down something she can't manipulate, threaten, or escape from. And it all begins on an ordinary, quiet morning when Sheila wakes up with a pain she can't explain, a deep, persistent ache that settles in her body like an unwelcome guest. One she tries to ignore at first. Because Sheila Carter does not run to doctors unless she absolutely has to. Not after years of living on the run and hiding from authorities. But this pain is different, it doesn't fade, it lingers, and as the days pass, the fatigue becomes crushing. The mirror starts to reflect a woman who looks older, paler, thinner. And finally even Sheila has to admit something is wrong, leading her reluctantly to the hospital where fate, irony, and unfinished business collide. Because the doctor who ends up reviewing her tests is none other than Finn, the son she nearly lost forever, the man who has tried so hard to draw boundaries between himself and the chaos Sheila brings. And when Finn sees her name on the chart, his stomach drops, his professional instincts colliding with years of anger, trauma, and unresolved emotion. Yet he does his job, calmly ordering tests, scans, blood work, and when the results come back, the room feels suddenly too small, too quiet, too heavy because Finn recognizes the signs immediately, and he knows this isn't something that can be brushed off or sugar-coated. And when he finally sits across from Sheila, his voice steady but eyes filled with something unreadable, he delivers the words that will change everything. Cancer, a diagnosis that hits Sheila like a bullet she never saw coming, leaving her frozen, silent, stripped of her usual bravado, because for once there is no scheme, no escape plan, no one to blame, just her own mortality staring her in the face, and the shock doesn't come out as tears at first, but as disbelief, laughter, even a hollow, brittle sound as she asks if he's joking, if this is some kind of test, and Finn shakes his head, explaining the stage, the treatment options, the seriousness, and Sheila hears the words but they blur together. Because all she can think about is the cruel irony that after fighting so hard to stay alive, after clawing her way back into Finn's life, after dreaming of redemption, this is what threatens to take her away. And as news spreads quietly through the hospital, whispers ripple outward, reaching Steffi first, whose reaction is complicated and raw, a mix of anger, fear, and something she hates herself for feeling, pity. Because Sheila is the woman who shot her husband, terrorized her family, and yet she is also the mother of Finn's child, and cancer doesn't care about past sins. And when Steffi confronts Finn, demanding to know if it's real, if Sheila is lying, if this is another manipulation, Finn assures her it's not, the scans don't lie, and Steffi is left shaken, realizing this changes everything, because no matter how much she wants Sheila gone, this diagnosis ties them together in a way that feels inescapable, while meanwhile Sheila, alone in a hospital room, begins to unravel in private, haunted by memories of all the lives she's destroyed, all the chances she's squandered, and for the first time she wonders if this is punishment or just cruel randomness. And when she finally allows herself to cry, it's not for her reputation or her power, but for the time she may not have, the moments she might never get with Finn, with Hayes, with the family she has always wanted but never known how to protect. And as days pass, treatment plans are discussed, surgeries considered, chemotherapy looming like a storm on the horizon. And Sheila faces each appointment with a mix of defiance and fear, refusing to let anyone see how terrified she really is, except when she unexpectedly asks Finn one question that cracks his armor completely, whether he will be there when it gets bad, and Finn, torn between duty, resentment, and compassion, gives an answer that surprises them both, promising to be her doctor, not her son, but still staying, still showing up, still holding space for a woman he wishes didn't have this power over his heart. And when word reaches Deacon, the man who has loved Sheila despite everything, he rushes to her side, guilt flooding him. For every moment he doubted her, for every time he walked away, and in a rare moment of vulnerability, Sheila admits she's scared, not of dying exactly, but of dying alone, and Deacon vows she won't, standing by her even as others judge him for it, while Brooke, Ridge, and the rest of Los Angeles react with shock and suspicion, questioning whether this is another one of Sheila's twisted plays. But the medical proof silences even the loudest skeptics, forcing everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth that villains can suffer too, that illness doesn't discriminate, and that redemption sometimes begins not with forgiveness, but with fear. And as Sheila starts treatment, her strength falters, her hair begins to thin, her body weakens, and the woman who once terrified entire families now struggles to climb out of bed. Yet in those quiet moments, something changes inside her, a softening, a clarity, and when she looks at Finn, she doesn't see a prize to win or a bond to exploit, but a son she loves imperfectly, desperately, and she tells him she's sorry, not as a tactic, not as a plea, but as a simple truth. And Finn doesn't forgive her, not fully, but he hears it, and that alone feels like a miracle. And as weeks turn into months, the question looms over everyone: will Sheila survive? And if she does, will this experience truly change her? Or will the old patterns return once the threat passes? Because in the world of the bold and the beautiful, survival is never just about living, it's about who you become after the fight. And Sheila's battle with cancer may be the one thing that finally forces her to face herself, not as a villain, not as a victim, but as a flawed, frightened woman running out of time. And whether this diagnosis leads to redemption, tragedy, or one final shocking twist remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same again. And just when Sheila believes she has reached the bottom of her fear, when she thinks the diagnosis itself was the worst blow fate could deliver, the reality of cancer begins to unfold in relentless, humiliating detail, stripping away whatever illusion of control she still clings to. Because treatment is not dramatic or fast or clean the way violence once was in her life. It is slow and exhausting and invasive, days measured in nausea, dizziness, and the quiet dread of waiting rooms that smell like antiseptic and despair. And Sheila, who once thrived on chaos, now finds herself undone by silence, by hours alone with her thoughts, by the realization that the body she used as a weapon for decades is betraying her cell by cell. And when the first round of chemotherapy leaves her vomiting and shaking on a cold bathroom floor, clutching the edge of the tub like it's the only solid thing left in the world, she finally breaks in a way no prison ever broke her, sobbing not because she's weak, but because she's tired, tired of fighting, tired of surviving, tired of always being the monster everyone expects. And it's in that moment, with her strength gone and her defenses shattered, that Sheila whispers a truth she's never allowed herself to face. She doesn't want to die remembered only as the villain, and yet even as that thought takes root, the world around her refuses to soften, because Steffi watches every development with wary eyes, her fear for Finn battling with years of trauma, convinced that somehow, someway, Sheila's illness will still end with collateral damage. And when Finn starts spending longer hours at the hospital, reviewing Sheila's charts late at night, Steffi confronts him, accusing him of slipping back into Sheila's orbit, of letting guilt override reason. And the argument explodes into raw honesty as Finn admits he doesn't know how to be a son to a woman who has caused so much harm, but is now facing something no one deserves. And Steffi fires back that sympathy doesn't erase bullets, that illness doesn't rewrite history. Yet even as she says it, her voice cracks because she sees the toll this is taking on Finn, the man she loves, caught between compassion and self-preservation. And meanwhile Deacon becomes Sheila's unexpected anchor, sitting beside her through long infusions, making jokes that fall flat, holding her hand when the fear creeps in at night. And though everyone around him warns him he's being manipulated again, Deacon insists this time is different, that Sheila isn't acting, that he's seen her scared before but never this quiet, never this resigned. And when Sheila loses her hair, when clumps come out in her hands and she stares at her reflection like she's looking at a stranger, it's Deacon who shaves the rest of it off, gently, reverently, as if honoring something sacred. And for the first time in her life, Sheila doesn't feel powerful or seductive or feared. She feels human, exposed and fragile, and that vulnerability begins to ripple outward, forcing reactions from people who never wanted to think of her as anything but evil. Because when Brooke hears about Sheila's worsening condition, she's shaken despite herself, remembering moments when hatred felt easier than empathy, and Ridge struggles with the uncomfortable awareness that part of him wants to believe cancer is karma while another part knows that wishing suffering on anyone, even Sheila, comes at a cost to his own humanity. And as rumors swirl across Los Angeles, skepticism remains rampant. Whispers that Sheila is faking symptoms, exaggerating test results, staging weakness to worm her way back into Finn's life. And even when medical proof is undeniable, suspicion lingers like a stain that won't wash out, isolating Sheila further, making every kind gesture feel conditional, every moment of support feel fragile, as though one misstep could snap it all away. And then comes the complication no one anticipated. The treatment isn't working as hoped. Scans showing mixed results, one tumor shrinking while another stubbornly resists, forcing doctors to consider more aggressive options. And when Finn explains the risks to Sheila, the possibility of surgery, the chance of complications, even death on the table, Sheila listens with eerie calm, nodding, absorbing it all. And when he asks if she understands, she simply says she does, adding quietly that she's lived with danger her whole life. She just never expected it to come from inside her. And that line haunts Finn long after he leaves the room, because it reframes everything, turning Sheila from the source of danger into its victim. And as the pressure mounts, Sheila begins making decisions that surprise everyone, drafting a will, settling affairs, leaving letters sealed and labeled for Finn, for Hayes, even for Steffi. Letters no one knows the contents of but Sheila insists must be opened only if the worst happens, and that preparation sends shockwaves through those closest to her, because it feels final, like she's already slipping away. And when Steffi finds out about the letter addressed to her, her first reaction is anger, followed by confusion, then an unsettling curiosity she doesn't want to admit, and all the while Sheila's body continues to weaken, her once sharp instincts dulled by pain medication and exhaustion, leaving her unguarded in ways that frighten even her. And one night, after a particularly brutal round of treatment, she suffers a collapse in her hospital room, alarm screaming, nurses rushing in, Finn sprinting down the corridor with his heart in his throat, terrified not as a doctor but as a son. And as he works to stabilize her, barking orders, fighting panic, Sheila drifts in and out of consciousness, murmuring apologies, regrets, names from the past. And when she finally opens her eyes and locks them on Finn, she grips his hand with surprising strength and says she's scared she's running out of time to make things right. And Finn, choking back emotion, tells her that surviving comes first, that redemption can wait. But Sheila shakes her head, whispering that it can't always wait, because sometimes the clock decides for you, and that moment changes something irreversibly between them, creating a bond forged not in manipulation or obligation but in shared fear. And as Sheila recovers from the scare, fragile but alive, the question of forgiveness hangs heavy in the air, not as a demand but as a possibility. And even Steffi begins to sense the shift, watching Finn soften, watching Sheila shrink into someone smaller, quieter, and more contemplative. And it terrifies her, because if Sheila truly changes, then the world becomes morally complicated in ways Steffi has spent years avoiding, forcing her to confront whether she can hate someone who is dying, whether justice and mercy can coexist. And as weeks pass, the storyline barrels toward an emotional crossroads, with test results looming, secrets hidden in sealed envelopes, relationships strained to the breaking point, and Sheila standing at the center of it all, no longer the unstoppable force she once was, but a woman facing the ultimate reckoning, knowing that survival may come with consequences just as heavy as death, because if she lives, she will have to live with what she's done, and if she dies, she leaves behind questions, regrets, and unfinished wounds that may never heal, making her cancer diagnosis not just a medical crisis but a moral earthquake that reshapes every relationship it touches, proving once again that on The Bold and the Beautiful, even the most shocking illness is never just about the body, it's about the heart, the past, and whether anyone, even Sheila Carter, can truly change before time runs out. Sheila had always been the picture of strength, or at least that's what she had convinced everyone around her. Over the years she had built herself a reputation, a persona that could withstand scandal, betrayal, heartbreak, and every kind of upheaval Los Angeles's elite could throw at her. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for the news that would shatter the illusion of control she had so carefully maintained. Sitting in the sterile white room of the hospital, the air thick with antiseptic, her fingers nervously fidgeted with the edge of her blouse. Across from her, the doctor's face was carefully neutral, but the weight of the words hung between them like a storm cloud. "Sheila, the tests have confirmed it. You have cancer." The words were blunt, clinical, almost detached, but to Sheila they sounded like a thunderclap. Her mind spun, her chest tightening with panic, disbelief, and an unexpected surge of vulnerability she had long buried beneath layers of manipulation and cunning. Sheila had faced threats to her freedom, to her relationships, and to her social standing, but she had never confronted a foe like this. Something invisible, silent, relentless, and utterly indiscriminate. She could no longer negotiate with it, no longer charm it, no longer manipulate the outcome. It was a battle she had to fight on its own terms. Her first instinct was denial. It must be a mistake. Perhaps the lab results were wrong. Maybe the doctor had misread the scans. Sheila had a long history of convincing herself that reality could be rewritten, that truth was flexible, especially when it came to matters she refused to confront. Yet the look in the doctor's eyes, the soft sigh that escaped before he continued, made it painfully clear. This was real. I know this is a lot to take in, Sheila, but we need to discuss treatment options immediately, he said gently. Immediately. That word echoed in her mind like a drumbeat she couldn't ignore. Sheila had always been impulsive, but she had also been meticulous, calculating, someone who weighed every move before acting. But cancer demanded urgency. It wasn't something she could outwit with scheming or charm. It demanded action, resilience, and a willingness to face fear head-on. For the first time in years, Sheila felt powerless in a way that was raw, unfiltered, and terrifying. Sheila's mind raced back through her life, the triumphs, the betrayals, the losses, the moments of dark satisfaction when she had felt in control of destiny itself. She had been the architect of chaos, the queen of manipulation, the woman who could topple alliances and ignite feuds with a single whispered secret. And yet here she was, a patient, suddenly stripped of the armor she had carefully honed for decades. The irony was bitter, almost cruel, and it made her bitterly laugh, a short hollow sound that made the doctor glance at her with concern. The next hours blurred into a haze of medical jargon, appointments and consultations. Sheila learned about chemotherapy, radiation, surgical options, and prognosis. Each word was a reminder of fragility, mortality, and the cruel reality that life didn't bend to one's will, no matter how strong-willed or cunning one was. And yet, in this whirlwind of fear and uncertainty, there was a spark, a stubborn ember that refused to die, a reminder that Sheila had survived worse. She had clawed her way out of prison, out of scandal, out of heartbreak. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could survive this too. Back at her home, Sheila's family and a few close confidants waited anxiously. Her usual bravado faltered as she entered, the news heavy in her gaze. For a moment no words came, only the palpable weight of unspoken fear. Then, with a deliberate effort to steady herself, she spoke. "I've been diagnosed with cancer," she said, her voice cracking despite her attempt at composure. The room went silent, the gravity of her words sinking in like stones into the hearts of everyone present. Hope, ever compassionate, reached out first, wrapping Sheila in a tentative embrace. "Sheila, we'll get through this together," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. Sheila's eyes welled with tears, an unfamiliar sensation she struggled to contain. Pride and fear collided inside her chest, making her feel simultaneously weak and defiant. She had always been the one to offer comfort, to manipulate the emotional tides around her, but now she had to receive it, and the vulnerability was almost unbearable. Bill, ever the protector in moments of crisis, paced the room. His usual confidence was tempered by concern, his sharp gaze softening as he studied Sheila. "We'll find the best doctors, Sheila. Whatever it takes, you won't face this alone," he assured her, though even his voice betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. Sheila nodded, appreciating the sentiment even as a storm of emotions roared within her. Trust had always been elusive, a currency she traded sparingly, but now she realized that she would need allies in this battle, people who genuinely cared, people who couldn't be bought or outmaneuvered. As days turned into weeks, Sheila's world shifted. The once familiar routines of plotting, scheming, and social dominance were replaced with medical appointments, treatment schedules, and moments of introspection she had long avoided. The chemotherapy sessions were brutal, leaving her physically weakened and emotionally raw. Hair fell in clumps, her once vibrant skin took on a pallor that reflected her internal struggle, and fatigue became a constant companion. Yet beneath the exhaustion, a steely determination emerged. Sheila refused to let cancer define her. If she had survived betrayals, imprisonments, and public humiliation, she could survive this too. The emotional toll, however, was immense. Sheila found herself reflecting on her life, questioning choices, regrets, and the relationships she had built and broken. Memories of past betrayals, lost loves, and failed schemes haunted her, mingling with the stark reality of her mortality. Nights became a battleground of fear and reflection, tears mingling with the bitter taste of determination. She questioned her legacy, wondering if the woman she had been, manipulative, cunning, relentless, would be remembered or if this illness would redefine her in the eyes of those who had known her best. But amidst the despair, unexpected moments of clarity and connection emerged. Sheila began reaching out, mending bridges she had long ignored. Conversations with Hope and Steffi, once tinged with animosity and manipulation, became genuine, heartfelt.